is going on, everybody? This is Trudger MC, and with all of this Lego Harry Potter stuff going around, I figure we might as well take a look at the Harry Potter movies themselves and rank them. Now, for the record, I haven't read all of the books. I've read like a little bit of some of them, haven't read them in their entirety, and there's the simple fact that these are movies. We're not, they're not the books. Yeah, so y'all want to know my thoughts on the books? I guess I could briefly talk about that, but this is for the movies specifically, and I'm also not including the Fantastic Beasts movies because they're not really my thing. Okay, when I think of Harry Potter, I think of specifically the movies with Harry Potter's name in them. So we're looking at the 8 of those movies, and this is going to be my ranking. I'm sure it'll be different from yours, but yeah, here we go. We'll start off with number 8 for me. Now, for the record, I don't dislike any of these. So it was actually kind of hard, especially with the middle of the list. I was like, what do I do with these ones? Because I kind of like all of them equally. But I did come up with a list, and so one of them just has to be last place, just by default. And for me, the one that I gravitate toward the least is the Chamber of Secrets. And so the Chamber of Secrets, it's a good one. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's fun. It's got Gilderoy Lockhart in it. It's got the flying car in it, and all of that. But for me, the biggest issue that I have, and an issue that a lot of people have with this movie, it's really long. Like, this movie is way longer than all the other ones, and with it being an adaptation of a book that's a lot shorter than a lot of the other books, it just feels weird. Of like, this movie just it feels really long, and so because of that, it's a thing of if I'm in a Harry Potter mood, I don't really know if I want to sit down for, well over 2.5 hours and watch this. I mean, if you like it, I totally understand why. It's got a lot of things going for it. It's just that for me, it's the one that I gravitate toward the least. So that's not to say that's bad. I still like it. It's just I like the other ones more. So there we go. That is my number 8. And coming in at number 7, Coming in at number 7, we have Deathly Hallows Part 1, which is the 7th movie. So there you go. Deathly Hallows Part 1, I mean, what more is there to say that hasn't already been said? I mean, what they really should have done is just took some of this and then took some of the next movie and then just made them one movie, like a 3-hour long movie. I think people would have been fine with that instead of breaking it up into 2 parts here. So yeah, Deathly Hallows Part 1, I mean, it's cool. There are some scenes that I like. I like the Battle of the Seven Potters. I like that. And then I also like the scene where we find out about the origin of the Deathly Hallows and how that's animated, of like, the figure of death and all of that. I thought that was so cool. And of course the scene with Malfoy Manor and Dobby and all of that. Very sad, but also very important. So here we go. There are some individual scenes in here that I like, but overall it's a thing of I really don't get why this is like part 1, because when you do this, when you have a story and you break it up into 2 parts like this, by default it's a thing of, okay, one movie is primarily going to be set up, and then the other movie is primarily going to be like action and payoff and all of that. So like with this being, like I said, it's part 1. I mean, there are some things I like about it, but overall it's a thing of, do I really gravitate toward this one? Not really. The only reason why it's higher is because it's shorter than Chamber of Secrets. So again, it's not a knock on either of these movies. I do like both of them. It's just that I gravitate toward this one a little bit more because I like some of the scenes and some of the action, and it's also shorter. So there's that. So that is my number 7 pick. And coming in at number 6 is actually The Deathly Hallows Part 2. And on a side note, I actually wasn't allowed to watch these movies growing up. So I actually got into this whole thing like relatively recently. But I do remember back in 2011 going out to the movie theater to go see, I don't even remember what it was, but we went to see a movie in theaters. And I saw this on a poster, and I was like, I have no idea who these 2 characters are. I have no idea what they're doing there, but that looks cool. I have no idea what that is, but that looks interesting. And then you fast forward, over a decade later, and I now understand all of that, and it makes sense. But yeah, so that's kind of a side note with this. But yeah, Deathly Hallows Part 2. It's cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, you got the payoff and all of that. You got characters like Neville, who really step up to the role and all of that and take out Voldemort and all of that. It's all cool. But again, I feel like breaking one story into 2 movies like this, I feel like it kind of hurts both of them. I don't know if it's just me that thinks that, but I really feel like both of these movies would have been better if you made them both a little bit shorter and then put them together into one movie. So if they had done that, I would have been totally cool with this. But yeah, as it stands, I feel like this movie just kind of feels weird. Of like, I don't really see myself watching just part two because I feel like part one, has a lot of things going on, but then part two, we're still setting things up. Like they still have to go to the bank and they still have to like get all that stuff figured out, and then they can go to the school. So I feel like they kind of like it's like they took one story and they're like, okay, we're gonna cut it off right at the halfway point and then we're going to continue the rest of the story in the next movie. So I really feel like this should have been one movie, but regardless, that's what we got. So I personally feel like it kind of hinders this movie a little bit by being, like basically part two of what should have been one movie. But regardless, so there we go. You got Deathly Hallows Part 1 in the number 6 spot. Okay, now we have number 5, the top 5. We're already in the top 5, but then there are 8 movies here. So there we go. Number 5 for me. Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? Yes, the Goblet of Fire. with the very calm Dumbledore, of course. I think Goblet of Fire is cool. When I first saw these movies, like watching them for the very first time, when I saw Goblet of Fire, I was like, oh, that one's my favorite. And then as I watched the other ones, like Order of the Phoenix onward, and then I kind of reassessed all of them, I was like, yeah, this one doesn't really hold up the best. But what I do like about it, I like how they kind of, so like you see kind of with Prisoner of Azkaban, they kind of leaned into more of a dark and like edgier side to it. And then this movie, it begins with some dude getting killed because he sees like baby Voldemort, like it starts with a very interesting way. And then you actually get to see Voldemort in this one. Like they were setting him up for the past 3 movies of like, you can't talk about him, you can't say his name, we don't want to acknowledge him, so like we actually get to see what he's like and how big of a threat he is, and I thought that was cool. I like how we have stakes in there, like taking Batman and having him being killed off. It actually like kind of raises the tension here, and but then again that kind of makes sense when you have the movie being PG-13. But I think that it's cool. It's just that there are some things that I think is kind of weird, like I feel like some of the scenes with like some of the characters doesn't really, feels like we're kind of just, like I want to see more in the Triwizard Tournament itself and what they actually have to do, and not, so much the characters just talking to one another. And then like and what I really think is weird is the ending, to where like you get Voldemort, he comes back, Harry sees him, Harry knows, okay, this guy is back, he's real, he's dangerous. And then the movie just kind of ends from there. Yeah, they acknowledge that Cedric died, and then they just kind of move on. And then Harry's like, okay, well, I guess we'll see what happens next year. And I feel like that was kind of a really weird ending. And I know that they had to set up with Mad-Eye Moody and him secretly being Barty Crouch Jr. and all that. I know that they did all of that, but I still think it was kind of weird of like, I just thought the ending was really weird, and so that kind of does take me out of it a little bit. I still think it's fun though. I do like a lot of the scenes in there, and of course there's the meme with Dumbledore in this movie. So there is that kind of makes it fun. But yeah, I like Goblet of Fire, just not my favorite anymore. And then coming in at number 4, I'm sure this will be controversial because I know this is a popular pick for one of the worst movies, but I have The Half-Blood Prince coming at number 4. So the reason why I like Half-Blood Prince is because I really like the story of the individual characters, specifically with Ron and Hermione. It feels like they're actually stepping up and they're becoming more significant. And then the stakes of like Voldemort coming back and like the skull and the clouds, and actually not Voldemort, but like Snape killing Dumbledore. And then like them setting that up of like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen now? Like when I was watching these movies for the first time and I got to the end of Half-Blood Prince, I immediately put Deathly Hallows Part 1 in, because I was like, I have to know what happens next. And so I thought it was really cool. Like I said, I like how Ron kind of steps into more of a leadership role, him not really being in the background anymore. I like that. And then, like I said, the stakes, like, they're raising, and it feels like it actually, there's tension and all that. And like I said, Dumbledore dies in this movie, so it's cool. And for it being PG, I feel like it's pretty dark, and I like it. The only thing, I guess, is that I feel like the character arcs that they gave, like Ron and Hermione, and making them more significant and all that, I feel like a story like this would have worked better for those characters if it had happened earlier in the series instead of as things are coming to an end. But that's like a minor thing. I still think it's fun. I like it. There are some interesting scenes in here and all of that. So yeah, I understand why people don't like this one, why they have it as like the bottom. But for me, I feel like it's just kind of middle of the road when it comes to Harry Potter. There are a lot of things I like about it. There are some things I don't like about it. But overall, it's pretty good. And like I said, the first time I saw it, when the movie ended, I was like, okay, I have to know what happens next. And I did. But yeah, so now we're in the top three. Top three. Coming at number 3 is the first movie. And this is the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is the proper version, but I am an American, so my copy says the Sorcerer's Stone. But regardless, the first movie, the one that started it all. What more is there to say? I mean, Chris Columbus really knocked it out of the park with this, of taking this really weird world, but then making it seem real in a way. And because your main character is this kid who has never heard of any of this before, he's just shoved into this world. It's like you are experiencing this world and being introduced to this world just like this kid is. And we know this kid is important, but we don't know particularly why or how or anything like that. And so like you following Harry and then like these kids that he meets for the very first time and they come to be significant characters later on, like you see all of that. This kind of laid the groundwork. And I feel like for a first movie, this is really good. I tend not to like first movies and like franchises and all that particularly, just because I feel like, I don't know, like a lot of times I think the sequels can be more interesting. Now, there are a lot of cases where I like the first movie the best, but for the most part, I think if I like the other movies in the series more. For this one, ever since I saw it, I was like, man, this might be my favorite out of all of them. And then like, when it got to like the top 3, I was like, man, I really don't know which one I like the best. But yeah, I'm going with this one at number 3. If you ask me tomorrow, my opinion might change and this one might be my favorite. But yeah, there's a lot that it does right. I like the mystery element to it because I'd never read any of the books seeing this movie. And so with them like setting up Snape to be the villain, I was like, okay, Snape's the bad guy. But then they had like the plot twist of no, it was Professor Quirrell. And he like has Voldemort in the back of his head and all that. I was like, that's really interesting. And so I thought that was cool. And like I said, this is the world building of like, you are introduced to this world along with these characters and all of that. And you get a ton of memorable scenes in this movie too. So there you go, all of that. So that is my number 3 pick. Then coming in at number 2, this isn't my favorite movie, but this is, out of all the copies of these movies that I have, this is my favorite box. So my number 2 is Prisoner of Azkaban. You might be wondering, why is this my favorite box? Well, I'll show you. If I open it up, it's got a Blockbuster tag on there, which I think is really cool. So yeah, this is a relic from the past of an old Blockbuster DVD. So that's really cool. But yeah, so Prisoner of Azkaban. I know this is a popular pick of like the like a favorite, and I totally get why. I as someone who likes horror movies and like dark and edgy stuff sometimes, I like how they kind of transitioned. Like I think it worked really well going from the first 2 movies that were really like light and magical and fun and all of that, and then how they did like a subtle shift with this movie that's still noticeable, but it doesn't feel too jarring. Of like it's darker, it's bleaker, and there are more stakes here because again there's a mystery element of there's this presumed serial killer out on the loose and he's targeting these kids for whatever reason. And then like the mystery surrounding that of who actually is Sirius Black and what does he want and all of that. And yeah. I do think is interesting though is the time travel element. Like when people talk about this movie, they always bring up the time travel element. And when I saw this movie, I went into it expecting, okay, the time travel element is like the half of the movie. But it's really not. It's toward the end of the movie. And it's to help, explain things and help, add continuity and all of that. And then what they did at the end with like the reveal of who actually the villain was and all of that and who Sirius actually was and all that, I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, I think that this is fun. There's a lot of fun scenes in here, like the night bus. I actually have a lot of nostalgia for the night bus when I was a kid, even though I never saw these movies as a kid. If you want to know what I mean by that, I can explain that in a short. But yeah, so yeah, we got some nice elements here. Like I said, I like how it's kind of like a subtle shift, but it's still good of like, it being darker and all of that. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, when I think of Harry Potter, this is one of the first movies that I think of just because of all the characters in it, the story and all of that. I think this is really cool. And plus, like I said, this is a Blockbuster video. So there we go. There's that. But then by process of elimination, number 1 is Order of the Phoenix. And yes, the Order of the Phoenix is my favorite for a lot of reasons, really. One of them being Dolores Umbridge. I think she's a fantastic villain. I always think it's interesting when stories have villains that, physically speaking, aren't that intimidating, aren't that imposing. Like, they're not super strong. They don't have, like, all these insane abilities that other characters don't have. It's just the thing of, like, someone who has a lot of, like, power and authority over people. And, like, that's what makes them so intimidating. So characters like Jason Wynn from Spawn, or, like, Dolores Umbridge. I know that's a very different thing. But, it's characters like that. I think that those are really interesting villains when they do that. And so, but that's just one element to it. The main reason why Order of the Phoenix is my favorite is because you get this really solid follow-up from the Goblet of Fire. Like, Goblet of Fire ended with a student dying, and even though people are trying to sweep it under the rug and dismiss it, Harry knew that this bad guy that, like, everyone keeps saying we can't talk about, I know that he's real. I saw him. He tried to kill me. And so you see Harry kind of dealing with that, and then you have kind of the dynamics with the other characters of them, wondering of, did Harry make that up, and or is Voldemort really out there? And you actually get to see Harry as a teacher. And that's not Harry. There's Harry. But yeah, you actually get to see him as a teacher, and him, like, secretly leading the class in a defense against the dark arts class, because Umbridge is basically like, no, you're not going to need that. And so that's really interesting, and, like, the characters and what happens with that. And we get to see, like, this is the point when the tension really starts to raise of who Voldemort is, what he's really all about, and what his cronies are all about as well. So we get to see, like, all of that. So it's all, like, coming together. And like I said, I feel like this is a really, really solid follow-up to the Goblet of Fire. And so I could totally picture if I got, if I'm in the mood for it and I got a ton of time to kill, I would put in, like, Goblet of Fire, and then I'd put this in right after. And I think that's a really good 1-2 punch. And so I think that it's really cool. It does just about everything right for me. And plus, this movie also introduces my favorite character in the entire series of Luna Lovegood. So there we go. And then it was actually this movie that inspired me to read the books in the first place, because the first book that I decided to read, I was like, well, Order of the Phoenix is my favorite movie. I might as well read the Order of the Phoenix book first, because I kind of already know how the stories go. Might as well check out the book, and I actually really like the book. So there we go. So there's that. Yeah, so Order of the Phoenix is my favorite Harry Potter movie, and so there we go. That is all of those. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's about it. So if you enjoyed this video, you like that, you agree with any of those, be sure to leave a like. You can let me know in the comments what you think. You can say, hey, why didn't you put, Chamber of Secrets at number 1, and, like, whatever it might be. Because like I said, I totally get any of the rankings here, because I like all of these movies, and believe you me, this was not an easy list for me to rank, because I was like, I really like this movie, and I like this movie, and I like this movie, so it was tough, but that's the list that I decided to go with. But yeah, if you want to see more content like this, you can definitely subscribe. The Lego Harry Potter stuff will be continuing. There's more of that coming. And yeah, but other than all that, I do hope you enjoyed. I hope they'll see you all later.